At 3:47 a.m., Pamela Robinson sent an ultrasound to the wrong number, and the man who received it was supposed to marry a mafia princess in 5 hours to end a war that had already killed 17 people. Lewis Griffin stared at that image, did the math on the pregnancy timeline, and realized the baby might be his from one night 6 months ago with a nurse whose real name he never learned. He typed 2 words to his second-in-command that would start a new war. Find her. Before we begin, click subscribe, like this video, and tell me in the comments section where you are watching from. Your support helps us bring more thrilling stories. And trust me, you won't want to miss them. Now, let's get into the story. Pamela Robinson didn't plan to text a crime lord. She only wanted her sister to see the ultrasound before the fear consumed her completely. It was 3:47 a.m., the kind of hour when hospitals go quiet and secrets feel too heavy to carry alone. Pamela sat on the bathroom floor of her studio apartment, knees pulled to her chest, the cold tiles seeping through her thin pajama pants. The lights were dim, not for ambience, but because brightness made the nausea worse. Her phone glowed in the darkness, casting shadows across her face as she stared at the image on the screen. 12 weeks, 4 days. A tiny bean-shaped form suspended in grainy black and white. The ultrasound technician had smiled when she printed it, like it was good news, like this wasn't the loneliest, most terrifying moment of Pamela's life. Marcus had been gone for 3 weeks. No goodbye, no explanation, just gone. Like their entire relationship had been a draft message he'd decided to delete. She couldn't carry this alone anymore. Not tonight. Her thumb hovered over her sister's contact. Lauren had always been there, through their mother's death, through nursing school, through every crisis Pamela had ever faced. She'd be there for this too. She had to be. Pamela attached the ultrasound image and typed quickly before doubt could stop her. "Lauren, I can't do this alone. I'm scared. Please call me when you see this. I need you." Her thumb trembled as she hit send. She didn't check the name, didn't verify the number. She just pressed send and let her forehead drop against her knees, the phone slipping from her fingers to the cold tile beside her. Across the city, in a penthouse that overlooked half the downtown skyline, Lewis Griffin stood before floor-to-ceiling windows wearing a custom midnight blue tuxedo that cost more than most people earned in a year. His reflection stared back at him. A stranger in wedding clothes, preparing for a marriage that would end a war but bury whatever remained of his humanity. Behind him, the master suite had been transformed into a staging area, the wedding suit, gold cufflinks that belonged to his father, a white rose boutonniere. In 5 hours he would marry Isabella Castellano. In 5 hours, 2 of the most powerful crime families on the East Coast would unite. In 5 hours, 17 deaths would finally be avenged, and a fragile peace would take root. In 5 hours, Luis would lose the last part of himself that could still feel anything. His phone buzzed on the marble counter. Private line. The number only his inner circle possessed. He glanced down, expecting Victor with last-minute security updates or his attorney with contract amendments. Instead, an ultrasound image filled his screen. Luis froze. His hand, which had held guns without trembling and signed death warrants without hesitation, shook as he lifted the phone closer. 12 weeks, 4 days pregnant. Time collapsed. His mind, trained through decades of calculated violence to assess threats in microseconds, performed different calculations now. 12 weeks, 3 months, 6 months ago, accounting for conception. 6 months ago, 1 night, 1 woman. A nurse he'd met in a hospital waiting room while visiting one of his men. She'd had kind eyes, a soft laugh, and no idea who he was because he'd given her a fake name. The only time in 5 years he'd allowed himself to be just a man, not a monster. The only woman he'd never forgotten. A second message appeared beneath the ultrasound. "Lauren, I can't do this alone. I'm scared. Please call me when you see this. I need you." The name above the messages wasn't Lauren. Luis stared at the words, something dormant and dangerous awakening in his chest. Every rational part of him, every carefully constructed wall he'd built between himself and human connection, screamed to delete it, ignore it, pretend he'd never seen it. But he couldn't look away from that tiny, flickering heartbeat in the image. Another message came through, panicked now. "Oh my God, wrong number. I'm so sorry. Please delete that. I didn't mean—" Luis's thumb moved across the screen before his brain could override it. He typed, "Is the baby healthy?" 3 miles south, in a bathroom that suddenly felt smaller and colder, Pamela's phone lit up. Her stomach dropped. The message wasn't from Lauren. She'd sent her ultrasound, her private, terrifying, life-changing ultrasound, to a complete stranger. She grabbed the phone with both hands, face burning with humiliation. "I'm so sorry. Yes, please just delete it and forget you saw anything." She locked the screen, pressed the phone against her chest, and tried to breathe. Another mistake. Another failure in a life that seemed built entirely of them. But the phone buzzed again. "Are you okay? Do you have someone helping you?" Pamela stared at the message. What kind of stranger asked that? What kind of person responded to a wrong number ultrasound with concern instead of confusion or anger? Her fingers hesitated over the keyboard. She should block the number, should pretend this never happened. Instead, she typed, "I'll be fine. Really, I'm sorry for bothering you." The response came faster. "You didn't bother me." In his penthouse, Luis stood motionless, the wedding tuxedo suddenly feeling like a costume, the skyline outside suddenly feeling like a prison. Victor would arrive soon with the car. The cathedral was already filled with guests. Isabella was probably adjusting her veil, unaware that everything was about to collapse. But all Luis could see was that ultrasound image. That tiny heartbeat. That scared woman who'd texted him by accident and awakened something he thought he'd killed years ago. His phone buzzed with another message from her. "Thank you for being kind." Most people wouldn't have responded at all. Luis typed slowly. "When are you due?" "June. Early June, they think." He did the math again. 6 months. It aligned perfectly with that night. That one night when he'd been Luis the man, not Luis Griffin, the crime lord. Another message from her. "I should let you go. I'm sure you have better things to do at 4 a.m. than talk to a stranger who can't text the right number." Luis looked at his reflection in the window. The tuxedo, the cufflinks, the lie he was about to walk into. He typed, "Tell me your name." A pause. Then, "Pamela. Pamela Robinson." Luis's jaw tightened. He opened a separate screen and typed a message to Marcus Chen, his private investigator. "I need everything on a Pamela Robinson. Nurse, late 20s, works night shift, probably at a hospital within 10 miles of the city center. I need it in 3 hours." The reply came instantly. "On it." Luis returned to Pamela's message thread. She'd sent another text. "What's yours? Your name?" He hesitated, then typed, "Luis." "Well, Luis, thank you for not being weird about this, for asking if I was okay. You didn't have to do that." "Are you? Okay?" Another pause. Longer this time. Then, I'm terrified. The father's gone. I'm alone. I don't know how I'm going to do this. Luis read the message 3 times, each word cut deeper than the last. His phone buzzed. Pamela again. I should let you sleep. Thank you for being kind, Luis. I needed that tonight. Luis typed, Don't be scared, Pamela. I'm going to find you. And when I do, everything's going to change. He hit send, then turned to Victor. Find Pamela Robinson. I don't care what it costs or how long it takes. Turn this entire city upside down if you have to. Just find her. But to understand why Luis Griffin, a man who'd built an empire on ruthlessness and control, would throw away everything for a woman he'd met once and an ultrasound sent by mistake, you need to understand the night 6 months ago that changed both their lives. The phone call came at 6:47 a.m. Boss, I've got her. Luis was standing at the window, still in his tuxedo, watching the sunrise bleed orange across the city skyline. He hadn't slept, hadn't changed, hadn't moved except to pour whiskey he didn't drink. The glass sat untouched on the marble counter, condensation pooling at its base like tears the room wouldn't shed. Talk, Luis said. Marcus's voice crackled through the line, efficient and detached. Pamela Robinson, 28 years old, registered nurse at St. Vincent's Hospital, night shift in the ER, single, no priors, no debts, clean record, lives alone in a rent-controlled apartment in the South District. Previous relationship with Marcus Chen, no relation to me, ended approximately 3 months ago. He's currently in Singapore on a work visa. Hasn't been in the country since July. Luis's jaw tightened. He's not the father. Confirmed. Timeline doesn't match, which means I know what it means. Luis's voice was cold, controlled, but beneath it, something else simmered, something he hadn't felt in years, something dangerous and alive. Send me her address and her work schedule. Boss, your wedding is in 3 hours. I'm aware. Isabella Castellano is... I know who she is. Marcus. Luis's tone sharpened like a blade drawn from its sheath. Send me the information, now. A pause stretched across the line, heavy with unspoken warnings. Then, sent. But, Luis, if you're thinking what I think you're thinking, you're about to start a war. Luis ended the call. He stood there for another moment, ultrasound image still glowing on his phone screen, that tiny heartbeat frozen in grainy black and white. Then he turned and walked toward the door, each step feeling like a choice he couldn't unmake. Victor was waiting in the hallway, tablet in hand, stress carved into every line of his face. The car's ready. Cathedral's set. Your mother's already at the venue with your aunt. Isabella's father just arrived with... Cancel it, Luis said. Victor blinked. Cancel what? The wedding. Cancel everything. The hallway went silent. Even the distant hum of the city below seemed to hold its breath. Victor's face drained of color, his tablet nearly slipping from his fingers. Boss, you can't... Call Isabella's father. Tell him the wedding is off. Tell him it's personal, it's not negotiable, and I'll explain later. Luis. Victor stepped in front of him, blocking the elevator. If you cancel this wedding, the Castellanos will see it as an insult, a betrayal. They'll come after us. You're throwing away 6 months of negotiations, a peace treaty, everything we've... I don't care. You don't... Victor's voice cracked with disbelief. What the hell happened? What could possibly be worth... Luis pulled out his phone and showed Victor the ultrasound image. Victor stared at it, confused. His eyes scanned the screen once, twice, trying to make sense of what he was seeing. What is this? A reason? Louise said simply. A reason for what? To walk away from everything I thought I wanted. Louise pocketed his phone. Now make the call, and then I need you to assemble a team. Discreet. People I trust. I need someone found, and I need it done today. Victor's eyes widened. You're serious? I've never been more serious in my life. Louise, this is insane. You don't even know if... I know. Louise's voice dropped. Quiet, but absolute. The kind of quiet that had preceded violence in the past, but now carried something different, something almost human. I know it's mine. I know she's alone. And I know that if I walk into that cathedral today, I'll regret it for the rest of my life. Victor exhaled slowly, running a hand through his hair. The Castellanos are going to burn us to the ground. Let them try. Louise stepped around him toward the elevator. Make the call, Victor. Then find me Pamela Robinson. Isabella Castellano stood in the bride's preparation room, surrounded by silk, lace, and lies. Her wedding dress cost $40,000. Her makeup artist had flown in from Milan. Her father had invited 300 guests, half of them soldiers, the other half politicians who owed him favors they'd never fully repay. But Isabella wasn't thinking about any of that. She was thinking about the vial of poison tucked inside her bouquet. Miss Castellano? Her maid of honor knocked softly. They're asking if you're ready for photos. 5 more minutes, Isabella said smoothly, her reflection in the mirror perfect, practiced, lethal. When the door closed, she pulled out her phone and typed a message to her contact. After the reception, during the first dance, make it look like a heart attack. The reply came instantly. Understood. Isabella smiled at her reflection. Louise Griffin thought this wedding was about peace, about uniting families, about ending a war that had claimed too many lives on both sides. He had no idea she'd been planning his death since the engagement announcement. Once he was gone, she'd control both territories, both families, everything. Her father would be devastated, yes, but grief made people pliable. And Isabella had never been anything but patient. Her phone buzzed again, this time from her father. Problem. Griffin just cancelled. Get down here. Now. Isabella's smile vanished. Her fingers tightened around the phone, the screen cracking slightly under the pressure. She read the message again, certain she'd misunderstood. Griffin just cancelled. Impossible. She stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the marble floor. Her maid of honor opened the door, concern flickering across her face. Miss Castellano? Get out, Isabella said, voice cold enough to frost glass. The woman vanished. Isabella stared at her reflection one more time. The perfect dress, the perfect makeup, the perfect lie about to crumble because Louis Griffin had done something she'd never anticipated. He'd walked away. Pamela woke to pounding on her door. She jolted upright, disoriented, her scrubs still on from last night's shift. For a moment, she thought she'd dreamed it. That the ultrasound, the wrong text, the kind stranger, all of it had been exhaustion playing tricks on her mind. Then the pounding came again, harder. Pamela Robinson! Open up! Her heart seized. She stumbled to the door, legs unsteady, and looked through the peephole. 2 men in dark suits stood in the hallway, not police uniforms, not landlord casual. Something else. Something worse. Who are you? She called through the door, voice shaking. We work for Louis Griffin. He needs to speak with you. It's urgent. Pamela's blood went cold. She didn't know anyone named Lewis Griffin, didn't recognize the name at all. But something about the way they said it, like it was supposed to mean something, like everyone should know that name, made her stomach twist. "I think you have the wrong person," she said. "You sent him an ultrasound image at 3:47 this morning. He wants to talk." Pamela's stomach dropped into her feet. The wrong number. The stranger who'd asked if her baby was okay. The man who'd been kind when he didn't have to be. Lewis Griffin. "I don't know what you're talking about," she lied. "That was a mistake." "Miss Robinson, Mr. Griffin is not a patient man. He's cancelled very important plans to find you. The least you can do is hear him out." "I'm calling the police." One of the men laughed. It wasn't a warm sound. "Go ahead. But you should know, Mr. Griffin owns half the police force in this city, and the other half is too scared to cross him." Pamela backed away from the door, phone in hand, pulse hammering in her ears. Her apartment suddenly felt smaller, the walls closing in. "Who is he?" she whispered. Through the door, one of the men answered. "He's the man who runs this city. And apparently he thinks that baby you're carrying is his." The words hit like a physical blow. Pamela's hand went to her stomach instinctively, protective, terrified. "That's impossible," she said. But even as the words left her mouth, her mind was racing backward. 6 months. The hospital waiting room. The man with dark eyes who'd given her a name she suddenly realized might have been fake. Luis. "Miss Robinson," the other man said, voice slightly gentler. "We're not here to hurt you, but you need to understand. Mr. Griffin cancelled his wedding this morning to find you. That means people are going to start asking questions, dangerous people. You're safer if you come with us." "His wedding?" 3 hours from now, to Isabella Castellano. Does that name mean anything to you?" It didn't. But the way he said it made Pamela's blood run colder. "I'm not going anywhere with you," she said, voice steadier than she felt. "I don't know who Lewis Griffin is. I don't know what he wants, and I'm not leaving my apartment." Silence on the other side of the door. Then one of the men spoke quietly into what must have been a phone or radio. "She's refusing contact, requesting direct intervention." A pause. Then, "Copy that. He's on his way." Pamela pressed her back against the wall, phone clutched in both hands. He's on his way. Whatever she'd started with that accidental text at 3:47 a.m., it wasn't over. It was just beginning. Pamela's hand was still on her stomach, protective and trembling, when she heard the elevator doors open down the hall. Heavy footsteps. Measured, deliberate. Not the 2 men who'd been pounding on her door. Someone else. "Step aside," a voice said, low, controlled, commanding, the kind of voice that didn't need to be raised to be obeyed. Through the peephole, Pamela watched the 2 suited men immediately move away from her door. They positioned themselves on either side of the hallway like sentries, hands folded in front of them, eyes forward. And then he appeared. Lewis Griffin. Even through the distorted fisheye lens of the peephole, Pamela could see he wasn't what she expected. He was tall, yes, wearing a black suit that looked like it cost more than her car used to. His dark hair was slightly disheveled, like he'd been running his hands through it. But it was his eyes that stopped her breath. Dark, intense, and somehow familiar in a way that made her chest tighten. He stood in front of her door for a moment, just stood there, like he was gathering himself. Then he knocked, not pounding like his men had, just 3 measured taps. "Pamela," he said through the door, "my name is Luis. You texted me this morning. I'd like to talk. Just talk, That's all. Pamela pressed her back against the wall beside the door, heart hammering. I already told your men I don't know you. You don't. A pause. But I think we met once. 6 months ago. St. Vincent's Hospital. Late shift. You were in the waiting room, reading a nursing journal and eating terrible vending machine coffee. Pamela's breath caught. The memory slammed into her with unexpected force. The man in the waiting room, the one who'd asked about the article she was reading, the one who'd made her laugh during one of the worst shifts of her life. The one who'd told her his name was... You said your name was Alex, Pamela said, voice barely above a whisper. I lied. His voice was quieter now, almost apologetic. I'm sorry. I had reasons. Bad reasons, but reasons. You're Louis Griffin. Yes. The man who runs this city. Some would say that. Another pause. Others would use different words. None of them flattering. Pamela closed her eyes, trying to process. The kind stranger from the hospital. The man who'd bought her real coffee from the shop across the street. The man she'd spent 3 hours talking to before he'd walked her to her car. The man she'd... Oh, God. You need to leave, Pamela said, but her voice wavered. I will, if that's what you want. But first, please, just look at me. Through the peephole, if that makes you feel safer. Just look. Pamela didn't want to. Didn't want to see if the man on the other side of the door matched the man from her memory, the man who'd made her feel seen and safe and human during a shift where she'd watched 3 people die. But she looked anyway. Louise stepped closer to the peephole, and even through the distortion she could see it, could see him, the same dark eyes, the same jawline, the same person, just without the lies. It's you, she whispered. It's me. You're a criminal. Yes. No hesitation, no justification, just truth. You cancelled your wedding. Yes. Because of me. Louise was quiet for a moment, then, because of what you sent me. Because of the timeline. Because 6 months ago I met someone who treated me like a person instead of a weapon, and I've thought about her every day since. Pamela's hand went to the doorknob before she could stop herself. Then she froze. Your men said you own the police. Half of them. The other half just know better than to interfere. That's not reassuring. I'm not here to reassure you, Pamela. I'm here to tell you the truth, even if it's ugly, even if it makes you hate me. He paused. The baby. Is it mine? Pamela's throat tightened. I don't know. Marcus Chen, your ex. He's in Singapore. Has been since July. How do you... She stopped. You investigated me. I had to know. You had no right. You're right. I didn't. Louise's voice was steady, but not cold. But I did it anyway because when I saw that ultrasound, when I did the math, I realized there was a chance, a real chance, that I'm about to become a father. And I needed to know if that was true. Pamela slid down the wall until she was sitting on the floor, phone clutched in her hand. This can't be happening. I know it's a lot. I know you're scared. But Pamela, you need to understand something. He paused, and when he spoke again, his voice carried a weight that made her chest ache. I cancelled my wedding this morning. That wedding was supposed to end a war. It was supposed to unite 2 families and stop more people from dying. And I walked away from it because the moment I saw your ultrasound, nothing else mattered. You don't even know me. I know enough. I know you work night shifts at St. Vincent's. I know you take your coffee black because you say it's the only honest thing in a hospital. I know you lost your mother 2 years ago and you still wear her necklace. I know you read medical journals in waiting rooms because you never stopped trying to be better at saving people. His voice softened. And I know that 6 months ago, you made me feel human for the first time in 5 years. Pamela pressed her forehead against her knees. I can't do this. I can't be part of whatever world you live in. I'm not asking you to be. Then what are you asking? Let me protect you. Let me make sure you and the baby are safe. Because the moment I cancelled that wedding, I made enemies, dangerous ones. And if they find out about you, they'll come after me, Pamela finished, stomach turning cold. Yes. She was quiet for a long moment. Then, what was her name? The woman you were supposed to marry. Isabella Castellano. And she's going to be angry. Angry doesn't begin to cover it. Luis's voice dropped. She's going to want blood. Mine, preferably. But if she can't get to me, she'll look for other ways to hurt me. You're leverage now, whether you want to be or not. Pamela laughed, a hollow, broken sound. I texted the wrong number and now I'm leverage in a mob war. That's insane. It is. I should hate you. You probably should. But I don't. She looked up at the door, tears burning her eyes. I don't know why, but I don't. Can I see you? Face to face? Pamela hesitated. Every rational part of her brain screamed to keep the door closed, to call someone, though who she didn't know, to make this go away. But the baby shifted inside her, a tiny flutter she'd only just started to feel. And she thought about being alone, about the empty apartment and the unpaid bills, and the terror of facing this pregnancy without help. She thought about the man on the other side of the door who'd lied about his name, but been honest about everything else that night. Who'd made her laugh? Who'd told her she was going to be an amazing doctor someday, even though she was just a nurse and probably always would be? Slowly she stood, unlocked the deadbolt, slid the chain free, and opened the door. Lewis Griffin stood in her doorway, and up close, without glass or lies between them, he looked exactly like she remembered. Except for his eyes. They carried something different now, something heavier. Hi, he said quietly. Hi, Pamela replied. They stared at each other for a long moment. Then Louise's gaze dropped to her stomach, barely showing beneath her scrubs, and something in his expression cracked. May I? He gestured toward her apartment. Pamela stepped aside. Your men stay outside. Agreed. Louis looked over his shoulder. Wait in the car. No one comes up. No one gets close. The two men nodded and disappeared toward the elevator. Louis stepped inside, and Pamela closed the door behind him, suddenly hyper-aware of how small her apartment was. How threadbare. The second-hand furniture, the water stain on the ceiling she couldn't afford to fix, the stack of unpaid medical bills on the kitchen counter. Louis didn't seem to notice any of it. He was looking at her. You look good, he said. I look exhausted. That too. A small smile. But still good. Pamela crossed her arms. Don't do that. Don't try to charm me. Not now. Fair. The smile faded. Can we sit? They sat on opposite ends of her worn couch, an entire cushion of space between them that felt like miles. Tell me the truth, Pamela said. All of it. What you do, who you are, what I'm walking into if I let you help me. Louis leaned forward, elbows on his knees, hands clasped. My father was Louis Griffin Sr. He ran organized crime on the East Coast for 20 years. When he was killed 5 years ago, I inherited the empire. Not because I wanted it, but because the alternative was watching everything he built collapse and taking a lot of innocent people down with it. Innocent people working for the mob. Innocent families relying on incomes they don't ask questions about. Kids going to school, mothers putting food on tables. Luis's jaw tightened. It's not black and white, Pamela. I wish it was. So you run drugs? Guns? No drugs. Never drugs. My father's one rule. Luis met her eyes. We run security, protection services. We control shipping routes and union contracts. Some of it's legal, most of it isn't. And yes, people have died because of decisions I've made. Pamela's stomach turned. How many? Do you really want to know? Yes. Luis was quiet for a long moment. 17. In the last 6 months alone. That's why the wedding to Isabella was supposed to happen. To end the war between our families. To stop the killing. And you threw that away. Yes. For me. For the chance that the baby you're carrying might be mine. He paused. And because walking into that cathedral felt like signing my own death warrant in a different way. Pamela frowned. What do you mean? Luis hesitated, then reached into his jacket. Pamela flinched, but he moved slowly, deliberately, pulling out his phone. He pulled up a file and handed it to her. Isabella Castellano wasn't marrying me for peace. She was marrying me to kill me. Pamela looked at the screen, text messages, detailed plans. A contact labelled Dante, discussing poison, timing, making it look like a heart attack. Her hands shook. She was going to murder you during your wedding. During the first dance, according to the plan. Luis took the phone back. I've known for 2 weeks. My people intercepted the communications. I was going to expose her at the ceremony, use it as leverage to renegotiate the peace terms. But then I texted you. But then you texted me. Luis pocketed his phone. And suddenly none of it mattered. The peace treaty, the politics, the strategy, all of it disappeared the moment I saw that ultrasound. Pamela pressed her hand to her stomach. I don't understand. You don't even know if it's yours. I know the timeline matches. I know Marcus wasn't here, and I know... Luis's voice caught. I know that if there's even a chance that baby is mine, I can't walk away. I won't. Why? Because my father was murdered when I was 23, and I never got to tell him I loved him. Because I've spent 5 years building an empire and feeling nothing. Because 6 months ago, a nurse in a hospital waiting room looked at me like I was worth knowing, and it's the only real thing I've felt since. He met her eyes. And because if that baby is mine, they deserve better than a father who chose power over family. Tears burned Pamela's eyes. I'm so scared. I know. I don't trust you. You shouldn't. But I need help. And I don't have anyone else. Luis shifted slightly closer, not touching. Just closing some of the distance. Then let me be that help. No strings, no obligations. Just let me make sure you're safe while we figure this out. Figure what out? If I'm the father, what happens next? How to keep you away from Isabella's crosshairs? He paused. And maybe, if you'll let me, how to be someone you can trust. Pamela wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. You're a criminal. I am. A dangerous one. Very. And you're asking me to trust you with my life and my baby's life. Yes. She should say no. Should tell him to leave and never come back. Should block his number and pretend none of this ever happened. But the ultrasound image was still on her phone. The medical bills were still on her counter. And the memory of that night 6 months ago, the way he'd looked at her, talked to her, made her feel seen, wouldn't let go. Okay, Pamela whispered. Luis's eyes widened slightly. Okay, but I have conditions. I'm not moving into some safe house or compound. I'm not quitting my job. And I'm not pretending to be something I'm not. She met his gaze. I'm a nurse. I save people. That's who I am. And if you want to help me, you don't get to change that. Agreed. And when the baby comes, if it's yours, you don't get to make decisions about them without me. Ever. I don't care how powerful you are. Agreed. And you tell me the truth. Always, even when it's ugly. Deal. Luis extended his hand. Pamela stared at it for a moment, then shook it. His hand was warm, calloused, steady. So, what happens now? She asked. Now, I keep you safe, and we figure out the rest as we go. Pamela nodded slowly. Then, Luis? Yeah? That night, 6 months ago, did you mean the things you said, or was that part of the lie too? Luis's expression softened. I lied about my name. I lied about what I do. But everything else, every conversation, every laugh, every moment, that was real. That was me. Who's Alex then? A man I wanted to be. He paused. Maybe the man I could become, if I'm lucky. Pamela's chest ached. I hope you get that chance. Me too. They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of everything unsaid pressing down on them both. Then Luis's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his expression hardened. What is it? Pamela asked. Isabella. She knows. He stood. We need to move. Now. Move where? Somewhere safer. She's sending people. He pulled out his phone and made a call. Victor, Castellano's mobilizing. I need the secondary location ready in 20 minutes. Full detail, no mistakes. Pamela's heart raced. Luis. He ended the call and turned to her. Pack a bag, just essentials. We have maybe 15 minutes before this building becomes a war zone. A war zone? Pamela. Luis's voice was firm but not unkind. I need you to trust me. Just for the next hour. Can you do that? She looked at him, this criminal, this liar, this man who'd thrown away everything for a chance she still couldn't fully comprehend, and nodded. Good. Pack. I'll stand watch. As Pamela rushed to her bedroom, throwing clothes and toiletries into a duffel bag she hadn't used since nursing school, she heard Luis on the phone again. I don't care what it costs. Every route out of the South District, I want it covered. And Victor, if anyone gets within a block of her, you put them down. No questions, no warnings. Pamela zipped her bag with shaking hands and returned to the living room. Luis was standing at the window, looking down at the street below, phone still pressed to his ear. When he saw her, he nodded. We're ready. Let's move. They stepped into the hallway together, Luis's men already flanking them, and Pamela realized with stunning clarity that her life had just changed forever. The elevator doors closed, and as they descended toward whatever came next, Luis reached over and took her hand. She didn't pull away. Isabella Castellano didn't throw things when she was angry. That was for amateurs, for people who let emotion cloud judgment and strategy. But standing in her father's study, still wearing the wedding dress she'd never get to use for murder, she came dangerously close. "Explain it to me again," she said, voice ice-cold. "Slowly. Because I must have misunderstood." Her father, Antonio Castellano, sat behind his mahogany desk, fingers steepled, face carved from granite. Griffin called 2 hours before the ceremony, said the wedding was off. Personal reasons, non-negotiable. Personal reasons. Isabella laughed, sharp and brittle. We had a treaty. 6 months of negotiations, 17 deaths avenged, and he throws it away for personal reasons? That's what he said. And you accepted it. Antonio's eyes hardened. I didn't have a choice. He hung up before I could respond. By the time I sent people to his penthouse, he was gone. Disappeared with his entire inner circle. Isabella paced the length of the study, her mind racing. Lewis Griffin didn't make impulsive decisions. Everything he did was calculated, strategic, which meant something had changed. Something significant enough to risk war. Find out why, she said. I already have people, not people. Everyone. Every contact, every informant, every corrupt cop on our payroll. I want to know where Griffin went, who he talked to, and what the hell could possibly be worth starting this war over. Antonio leaned back in his chair. Isabella, we need to think carefully about our response. If we move too quickly... He humiliated us. Isabella's voice dropped to a whisper, which was somehow more terrifying than shouting. He humiliated me in front of 300 guests, politicians, judges, people who are now questioning whether the Castellano family can be trusted to hold a simple wedding, let alone control territory. I understand. Do you? She turned to face him. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like Griffin just declared war, and if we don't respond with overwhelming force, we look weak, and weak families don't survive. Antonio studied his daughter for a long moment. Then he nodded once. What do you want to do? Find his weakness. Everyone has one, even Luis Griffin. It took 3 hours and a significant amount of money, but Isabella's intelligence network was nothing if not thorough. The answer came from a corrupted hospital administrator who owed the Castellanos for a covered-up malpractice suit. He'd noticed something unusual. Griffin's personal investigator had been asking questions about a nurse. Specifically, a night shift ER nurse named Pamela Robinson. Isabella stared at the file on her phone. Pamela Robinson, 28, single, pregnant. She zoomed in on the hospital ID photo. Pretty in an understated way. Kind eyes. The type of woman who probably rescued stray cats and believed people were fundamentally good. The type of woman Lewis Griffin had no business knowing. Isabella made a call. Dante. The voice on the other end was smooth, professional. Miss Castellano, congratulations on your wedding. The wedding was cancelled. A pause. I see. I have a new job for you, time-sensitive and messy. I'm listening. Isabella sent the file. Pamela Robinson, nurse at St. Vincent's. Works night shift, but she's there now. Just started a double to cover someone's sick day. I need her eliminated. Today. Make it look like a robbery gone wrong. Understood. My usual fee. Double it. I want this done within the next 6 hours. Consider it done. Isabella ended the call and looked at Pamela's photo again. She didn't know what this woman meant to Lewis Griffin. Didn't know if she was a lover, a friend, or something else entirely. But she knew enough. Griffin had walked away from their wedding, had chosen something, or someone, over peace, over strategy, over everything they'd built. And Isabella was going to take that something away from him, permanently. Pamela had been at the hospital for 3 hours, trying to focus on work and failing spectacularly. Her hands shook as she checked vitals on a patient in bed 7. Her mind kept replaying the morning, Luis's men at her door, the revelation of who he really was, the way he'd looked at her when she'd finally let him in. You're not alone anymore. She wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to believe someone actually gave a damn. But Luis Griffin was a criminal, a dangerous one, and she'd just agreed to let him into her life. Pamela? Her supervisor, Janet, appeared at her elbow. You okay? You've been staring at that chart for 5 minutes. I'm fine, just tired. You sure? Because you look like you've seen a ghost. More like made a deal with the devil, Pamela thought. But she forced a smile. I'm sure. Just a long morning. Janet didn't look convinced, but she nodded. Take a break if you need one. We're slow today anyway. Pamela retreated to the break room, pulled out her phone, and did something she'd been avoiding all morning. She Googled Lewis Griffin. The results loaded instantly. Dozens of articles, news reports, FBI investigations. Lewis Griffin, alleged head of the Griffin crime family, continues to evade federal prosecution despite mounting evidence. 17 dead in ongoing mob war between Griffin and Castellano families. Sources say Griffin controls everything from shipping routes to union contracts, with ties to... Pamela's hands shook harder. She clicked on an image. Luis in a suit, walking out of a courthouse, flanked by lawyers. His expression was cold, controlled, nothing like the man who'd held her hand in the elevator that morning. This was who she'd agreed to trust. This was the father of her baby. Maybe. Probably. Oh, God. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. But something, instinct, curiosity, desperation, made her press accept. Pamela Robinson? Who is this? Someone who knows you're in danger. Don't leave the hospital. Don't go anywhere alone. Griffin's men are watching you, but they're not the only ones. The line went dead. Pamela stared at her phone, heart racing. They're not the only ones. She stood, legs unsteady, and walked to the break room window. Below, in the parking lot, she could see 2 black SUVs. Men in dark suits leaning against them, trying to look casual and failing. Luis's protection detail. But there, across the street, parked near the coffee shop, was a sedan. Tinted windows, engine running. Someone else was watching too. The break room door opened. Pamela spun around. Luis stood in the doorway, still in the same black suit from this morning, but now wearing a visitor's badge that definitely wasn't legitimate. We need to talk, he said. How did you get in here? I know people. Pamela, I Googled you. Her voice came out sharper than intended. 17 people dead, FBI investigations, organized crime. You're not just a criminal, Luis. You're a crime lord. I told you. You told me enough to make me trust you, not enough to make an informed decision. She crossed her arms. Who else is watching me? Luis's expression darkened. What do you mean? I got a call. Anonymous. Said Griffin's men aren't the only ones. There's a sedan across the street. Tinted windows. Been there for 20 minutes. Luis pulled out his phone and made a call. Victor, we've got company. Sedan across from the main entrance. Run the plates. Now! He paused, listening. I don't care what it takes. Find out who they are. He ended the call and looked at Pamela. We need to move you. I'm in the middle of a shift. Isabella Castellano knows about you. The words hit like cold water. What? My people intercepted communications an hour ago. She's put a price on your head. And knowing Isabella, she's already hired someone to collect. He stepped closer. I need to get you somewhere safe. Somewhere she can't reach you. I can't just leave. Pamela. Luis's voice was urgent but not unkind. I know this is a lot. I know you don't trust me. But right now I'm the only thing standing between you and a very motivated assassin. So please, let me get you out of here. Pamela looked at the window again. The sedan was still there. She thought about the baby, about the ultrasound image, about how quickly her life had spiraled from manageable poverty to mob war. Okay, she whispered. But I need to clock out. Tell Janet, already handled. You had a family emergency. You'll be back when it's resolved. You can't just... Luis's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his face went pale. What? The sedan. Registered to a shell company. Same one Isabella's used for contract kills before. He grabbed her arm, not rough, but firm. We need to move. Now. They were halfway to the service elevator when Pamela heard it. Gunshots. 2 quick pops from the parking lot below. Luis pushed her against the wall, his body shielding hers, one hand reaching inside his jacket. Victor, he said into his phone. Report. A voice crackled through. Hostile engaged. 2 shooters. We're handling it, but you need to get her out. Back exit. Now. Luis grabbed Pamela's hand. Run! And they did. They ran through the service corridors, past supply closets and maintenance rooms, Luis's hand gripping hers with a certainty that should have been reassuring, but only made her more aware of how completely her life had derailed. More gunshots echoed from somewhere behind them. Shouts. The screech of tires. Luis pulled her into a stairwell, pressing his back against the door as he listened. His other hand was inside his jacket now, wrapped around what Pamela knew, with sickening certainty, was a gun. "Is anyone hurt?" she asked, breathless. "The people in the parking lot?" "My men know what they're doing." "That's not what I asked." Luis looked at her, and for a moment something flickered in his eyes, something almost like regret. "I don't know. Probably." Pamela pulled her hand free. "This is insane. I can't do this. I'm a nurse. I save people. I don't run from gunfire in hospital stairwells with criminals?" "Yes!" The word came out sharper than she intended, echoing in the concrete space. "You lied to me, Luis. About everything." "Not everything. Your name, who you are, what you do." She pressed her hand against her stomach, feeling the barely there swell beneath her scrubs. "I let you into my apartment, into my life, and the whole time you were—" "A monster?" Luis's voice was quiet. "You can say it." "I was going to say a liar." "That too." He checked his phone. "Victor says the back exit is clear. We can get to the garage." "No." Pamela stepped back. "No, I'm not going anywhere with you. I want you to leave. I want your men to leave. I want to go back to my shift and pretend this morning never happened." "Pamela, don't." Her voice cracked. "Don't act like you care. Don't act like any of this is real. You cancelled your wedding because of some calculated strategy, not because you give a damn about me or this baby." Luis's jaw tightened. "You're wrong." "Am I?" "Because from where I'm standing, I'm just leverage. A pawn in whatever war you're fighting with the Castellanos." "Is that what you think?" Luis stepped closer, and Pamela saw something raw in his expression, something that looked almost like pain. "You think I threw away a peace treaty, started a war, and put my entire organization at risk for strategy?" "I don't know what to think anymore." "Then let me tell you." Luis's voice dropped. "I cancelled the wedding because the moment I saw your ultrasound, nothing else mattered. Not peace, not power. Not Isabella, or her father, or the 17 people who died because of this war. Just you. Just the possibility that the baby you're carrying might be mine. You don't even know if it is. I know the timeline matches. I know your ex wasn't in the country, and I know—" He stopped, jaw working. "I know that 6 months ago, I met someone who made me feel human again. And when I saw that ultrasound, I realized I'd been given a second chance at something I thought I'd lost forever." "What?" "A family." The word came out rough, like it hurt to say. "My father was murdered 5 years ago, shot in the back by someone he trusted. I never got to tell him I loved him, never got to say goodbye. And since then, I've spent every day building his empire and feeling nothing. Until you." Pamela's throat tightened. That doesn't change what you are. No, it doesn't. Louise met her eyes. I've killed people, Pamela. Made decisions that ended lives. Ordered things I can't take back. I'm not asking you to forgive that or forget it. I'm just asking you to let me keep you safe. Why? Because if that baby is mine, they deserve a chance to grow up with a mother who loves them. And because... He stopped, looking away. Because you deserve better than dying in a hospital parking garage because I was selfish enough to walk away from a wedding. Pamela wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. My father was FBI. Louise went very still. He died 5 years ago. Line of duty. They never told me the details, just that he was investigating organized crime and something went wrong. She looked at Louise. Was it you? Did you kill my father? The silence stretched between them, heavy and suffocating. No, Louise said finally, but I ordered surveillance on him. Pamela felt the world tilt. What? Agent Robert Robinson. I remember the name. He was getting too close to some of our operations, shipping routes, union contracts. I ordered my people to watch him, track his movements, but I never ordered his death. Luis's voice was steady, but his eyes were dark. That was one of my associates, a man named Vince Moretti. He acted without authorization, decided Robinson was too dangerous to monitor. By the time I found out what he'd done, your father was already dead. And Moretti? Dead 2 days later. I don't tolerate people who make decisions that aren't theirs to make. Pamela's legs gave out. She sank to the floor, back against the stairwell wall, hands over her mouth as 5 years of grief crashed over her again. I'm sorry, Louise said quietly. I know that doesn't change anything, but I'm sorry. You're sorry? She laughed, a hollow, broken sound. You ordered surveillance on my father. You created the situation that got him killed, and now you're asking me to trust you with my life. I know how it sounds. Do you? Pamela looked up at him. Because I just found out that the man who might be my baby's father is connected to my father's death. That every moment of grief I've carried for 5 years leads back to you. And I'm supposed to what? Just accept it? Move on? No. Louise crouched down until they were eye level. I don't expect you to accept it. I expect you to hate me. But right now, there's a contract killer in this hospital, and he's here because I made Isabella Castellano my enemy. And if you don't let me get you out of here, your father's death will have been for nothing because you'll die in the same war that took him. That's not fair! Nothing about this is fair. Louise extended his hand. But it's true. So please, Pamela, hate me later. Let me save you now. She stared at his hand, at the man offering it, at the impossible choice in front of her. Then the stairwell door exploded open. A man in black tactical gear burst through, gun raised. Not one of Louise's men. Someone else. Dante. Louise moved faster than Pamela thought possible, shoving her behind him as he pulled his own weapon. Get down! The first shot went wide, chipping concrete above their heads. The second hit the railing. The third... Louise grunted, stumbling back against Pamela. Blood bloomed across his shoulder, spreading fast through the black fabric of his suit. Louise! Pamela caught him, her nursing training overriding her shock. Dante advanced, gun trained on them both. Then the door burst open again. Victor and 2 other men, weapons drawn. Gunfire erupted in the enclosed space, deafening. Pamela pressed herself against the wall, arms wrapped around Louise, trying to make them both smaller, trying to understand how she'd gone from checking vitals to cowering in a shootout. When the shooting stopped, Dante was on the floor, bleeding from multiple wounds. Victor was on his radio calling for extraction, and Louise was leaning heavily against Pamela, blood soaking through her scrubs. "You're hit," she said, voice shaking. "I'm fine." "You're not fine. You took a bullet." Her hands found the wound, applying pressure automatically. "We need to get you to the ER. No hospitals. Too exposed." Louise winced. "Victor, the safe house." "Already called it in. 5 minutes out." Pamela looked at the blood on her hands, at Louise's face, paler now but still conscious, still focused on her instead of his own injury. He'd put himself between her and the gun, had taken a bullet meant for her without hesitation. "Why?" she whispered. Louise met her eyes. "Because you matter more." Victor helped Louise to his feet, but he didn't let go of Pamela's hand. "Come with us, please." She looked at Dante's body on the floor, at the bullet holes in the concrete, at the blood, Louise's blood, covering her hands. She thought about her father, about 5 years of not knowing, about the impossible, horrible truth that the man trying to save her was connected to the man who'd destroyed her family. But she also thought about the baby, about the ultrasound image, about staying alive long enough to figure out what came next. "Okay," she said, "but you're letting me treat that wound. And then you're going to tell me everything. No more lies, no more secrets." "Deal." They ran again, this time with Louise bleeding and Pamela's world completely shattered, toward whatever came next in a war she'd never asked to join. The safe house was in a part of the city Pamela had only seen from highway overpasses. Industrial, forgotten, the kind of place where businesses went to die quietly. The building looked like a derelict warehouse from the outside, but inside it was surprisingly clean, functional, a place designed for people who needed to disappear. Louise sat on the edge of a leather couch, shirt off, while Pamela cleaned the bullet wound in his shoulder. Her hands were steady, years of ER training taking over, but her mind was racing. "It went through," she said, voice clinical. "Clean exit. You're lucky." "Don't feel lucky." "Well, you're not dead. That's something." She threaded a needle with practiced efficiency. "This is going to hurt. I've had worse." She began stitching. Louise didn't flinch, didn't make a sound, just stared at the far wall like pain was something that happened to other people. "You should have let me take you to the hospital," Pamela said. "Too exposed. Isabella has people everywhere." "So we're just going to hide here, for how long?" "Until I can figure out how to end this." Louise finally looked at her. "I'm sorry for all of it. Your father. The danger I've put you in, the—" "Don't!" Pamela tied off the stitch. "Don't apologize again. It doesn't change anything." "I know." She reached for the bandage, and their hands brushed. Neither pulled away immediately. They sat there, frozen in that small moment of contact, blood on her hands and exhaustion in both their faces. "Why did you really cancel the wedding?" Pamela asked quietly. Louise was silent for a long moment. "Because marrying Isabella would have meant becoming someone I didn't want to be. Someone completely dead inside. And when I saw your ultrasound, when I did the math and realized—" He stopped. "It gave me an excuse to choose something else, something real." "You don't know me." "I know enough." His hand turned, fingers intertwining with hers. "I know you spent 3 hours talking to a stranger in a hospital waiting room because you saw someone who needed company. I know you work night shifts because the pay is better and you're trying to save for a future you weren't sure you'd have. I know—" The door burst open. Marcus, Louise's investigator, stood in the doorway, tablet in hand, expression grim. "We've got a problem." Luis pulled his hand away from Pamela's, the moment breaking. What kind of problem? The text. The one she sent you. It wasn't entirely random. Marcus looked at Pamela. Your sister, Lauren Robinson. She's into the Castellanos for $60,000. Loan sharks. High interest. She's been trying to pay it off for 8 months. Pamela's stomach dropped. What? 3 weeks ago, she was approached by someone in the Castellano organization. They offered to wipe her debt if she did them a favor. Marcus pulled up a file on his tablet. She manipulated your phone, changed 1 digit in your contact list for her number, made sure when you texted Lauren at 3:47 a.m., it would go to Luis instead. No. Pamela stood, legs unsteady. Lauren wouldn't. She's my sister. She wouldn't use me like that. She had 60,000 reasons to. Marcus showed her the screen. Bank records, text messages, evidence that made it impossible to deny. Pamela felt like the floor had disappeared beneath her. She set me up. She used my pregnancy, my fear, my... Her voice broke. She sold me out. Luis stood, moving closer but not touching. I'm sorry. Everyone's sorry. Pamela laughed bitterly. But nobody can fix this. My sister betrayed me. My father's dead because of your world. And I'm hiding in a warehouse with a bullet hole in my scrubs because I texted the wrong number. Actually, Marcus said carefully, you texted exactly the number you were supposed to. That was the point. Before Pamela could respond, Luis's phone rang. He glanced at the screen and his expression darkened. Victor, he answered on speaker. Boss? Victor's voice came through, but something was wrong. It was too controlled, too careful. We need to talk about our situation. What situation? The one where you chose a pregnant nurse over your entire organization. A pause. Over loyalty. Over family. Luis's jaw clenched. Victor, what did you do? What I had to. Victor's voice hardened. You were going to destroy everything your father built. For what? A woman you met once? A baby that might not even be yours? You're working with them. Luis's voice was ice. With the Castellanos. I've been working with them for 2 years, ever since you started going soft, ever since you started questioning whether this life was worth it. Victor laughed, cold and sharp. You think I didn't see it? The doubt? The weakness? Your father would be ashamed. My father is dead because people like you put ambition over loyalty. No, your father is dead because he trusted the wrong people, just like you did. Another pause. Isabella sends her regards, by the way. She's very interested in meeting Miss Robinson, face to face. Luis moved to the window, scanning the street. How long have we got? You're asking the wrong question, boss. You should be asking how many men I sent. The first explosion took out the front entrance. Luis grabbed Pamela, pulling her away from the window as the building shook. Glass shattered. Smoke filled the air. Back door! Marcus shouted, pulling his weapon. They ran through the safe house as gunfire erupted behind them. Men in tactical gear poured through the destroyed entrance. Not police, not even Castellano soldiers. Victor's men. People Luis had trained, had trusted. They burst into the back alley. Luis's car was there, but so were 3 SUVs blocking their escape. Men with automatic weapons positioned behind them. This way! Luis pulled Pamela left into a maze of narrow streets and abandoned buildings. Marcus covered their retreat, firing controlled shots that bought them seconds they desperately needed. They ran through alleys that smelled like rot and desperation, Pamela's lungs burning, Luis's shoulder bleeding through the bandage she'd just applied. Behind them, footsteps, shouts. The systematic search of people who knew exactly what they were doing. Where are we going? Pamela gasped. Somewhere Victor doesn't know about. Somewhere I haven't used in 5 years. They burst out of an alley onto a wider street. Ahead, silhouetted against the darkening sky, was a church. Old, Gothic, abandoned by the look of it. Louise pulled her toward it, shouldering open a side door that gave way with a groan of rusted hinges. Inside, the air was thick with dust and silence. Broken pews, shattered stained glass. A place forgotten by God and everyone else. They collapsed behind the altar, both breathing hard. "Are they following?" Pamela whispered. "Marcus will slow them down. Buy us maybe 20 minutes. Luis checked his gun. 4 rounds left. It won't be enough. Then what? Luis's phone rang again. Victor, he answered, voice cold. I'm going to kill you for this. No, you're not, because you're going to be too busy trying to keep your nurse alive. Victor's voice carried satisfaction now. Triumph. You chose wrong, boss. You chose a woman you barely know over the people who've bled for you, who've killed for you, and now you're going to lose everything, your organization, your power, your life. And when you're gone, Isabella's going to make sure Miss Robinson and that baby disappear quietly, permanently. Victor, it's already over, Luis. You just don't know it yet. The line went dead. In the silence of the abandoned church, Pamela turned to Luis. What do we do now? Luis looked at her, really looked at her. At the woman he'd thrown away everything for. At the baby she carried that might be his. At the impossible choice he'd made that had led them here. Now, he said quietly, I become the monster they always said I was. Because if that's what it takes to keep you alive, that's what I'll do. Outside, footsteps approached. Voices. The methodical search tightening like a noose. They were out of time. The church had been beautiful once. Pamela could see it in the bones of the architecture, the soaring arches, the intricate stonework, the alcoves where saints had once stood watch. Now it was just decay, a monument to faith abandoned. She sat behind the altar, back pressed against cold stone, one hand on her stomach where the cramping had started 20 minutes ago. Not contractions, not labor, just stress manifesting as physical pain, her body's way of screaming that this was too much. 16 weeks pregnant, 4 months. The baby was the size of an avocado now, according to the app she'd downloaded in a moment of optimism that felt like it belonged to someone else's life. How bad? Luis asked, kneeling beside her. His shoulder was bleeding again, the bandage soaked through. Just cramping. The baby's fine. She hoped that was true. Prayed it was true. How's your shoulder? I've had worse. You keep saying that. Because it keeps being true. He checked his gun again. Still 4 rounds. Still not enough. Outside, they could hear them. Footsteps on stone, voices coordinating, the methodical approach of people who knew their targets were cornered. There's a tunnel, Luis said quietly. Under the church. Prohibition-era smuggling route. Comes out 3 blocks from here. Then why aren't we using it? Because Victor knows about it. He was with me the last time I used it 5 years ago. Luis met her eyes. He'll have it covered, which means we need to thin their numbers before we run. Thin their numbers? Pamela laughed, a brittle sound. You mean kill them? Yes. Luis, I know what you are. I know what you believe in. But right now, the people outside aren't coming to arrest us or negotiate. They're coming to kill you and take whatever's left of me. His voice was steady, but his eyes were dark. So, I'm going to do what I have to, and I need you to understand that. Before Pamela could respond, the church doors exploded inward. Not blown open, kicked. Victor walked through the smoke and dust, gun drawn, flanked by 6 men in tactical gear. Behind them, more figures, Isabella's soldiers, maybe 20 in total. More than enough. Luis positioned himself in front of Pamela, his gun trained on Victor. "You don't want to do this." "Actually, I really do." Victor advanced slowly, his men spreading out to cover the exits. "I've been waiting for this moment for 3 years, ever since you started questioning whether the Empire was worth the cost, whether your father's legacy was something to maintain or something to escape. So you sold me out. I saved the organization. You were going to destroy everything by choosing peace over power, by choosing her." He gestured at Pamela with his gun. "Over loyalty." "Loyalty works both ways, Victor." "Does it?" "Because I've been loyal. I've killed for you, bled for you, built this empire alongside you while you slowly rotted from the inside." Victor's voice hardened. "Your father would be ashamed. He built something that mattered, and you were going to throw it away for a nurse you met once." "Twice," Luis corrected quietly. "I met her twice. Even worse." Victor raised his gun. "But don't worry. When this is over, Isabella will make sure the organization survives under better leadership." "Under her control, you mean?" "Same thing." Luis fired first. Victor dove right. Chaos erupted. Pamela pressed herself against the altar as gunfire exploded through the church. Bullets chipped stone, shattered what little remained of the stained glass, turned the holy space into a war zone. Luis moved like violence was a language he spoke fluently. 2 shots, 2 men down. He rolled behind a pew as return fire splintered wood above his head. A 3rd shot. Another soldier dropped. 1 round left. Victor emerged from behind a pillar, gun trained on Luis. "Last bullet, boss. Make it count." They stared at each other across the ruined church. Years of partnership, brotherhood, all of it burning down to this moment. Then Victor's eyes shifted to Pamela. "No," Luis said, but Victor was already moving. He grabbed Pamela before Luis could react, hauling her up, gun pressed against her temple. She gasped, the cramping in her stomach intensifying. The baby. God, the baby. "Drop it," Victor said, "or I put a bullet in her brain right now." Luis froze. His gun was still raised, but the angle was wrong. He couldn't shoot without risking Pamela. "You were supposed to be untouchable," Victor said, almost sadly. "The monster who felt nothing, the king who ruled through fear. But you fell in love, and that made you weak." "I'm not," Luis started. "You are. You threw away everything for her, for the possibility that a baby she's carrying might be yours." Victor pressed the gun harder against Pamela's head. "That's not strength, boss. That's weakness. And in our world, weakness gets you killed." Pamela's hand found the cramping spot on her stomach, protected it, protected the life inside her that didn't deserve any of this. She thought about her father, about 5 years of wondering how he died, about the courage it must have taken to walk into danger every day knowing he might not come home. "I'm my father's daughter," she thought. Her other hand found the gun on the ground beside her. One of the fallen soldiers had dropped it, heavy, cold, foreign in her grip. She'd never fired a gun in her life. "I'm my father's daughter." She twisted, jerking away from Victor's grip, and fired. The shot went low, hit him in the leg, just above the knee. Victor screamed, stumbling back, his gun swinging away from her head. Luis didn't hesitate. His last bullet caught Victor in the shoulder, spinning him around. He collapsed against a pew, bleeding, his weapon skittering across the floor. The remaining soldiers hesitated, looking at their fallen leader, uncertain. "Go," Luis said, voice carrying authority even now. "Walk away. This is between me and Victor." They looked at each other. Then, slowly, they began backing toward the exit. Whatever loyalty they'd had to Victor wasn't worth dying for. When they were gone, Luis walked to Victor, picked up his gun, and pressed it against his former friend's forehead. "Give me one reason," Luis said quietly. Victor laughed, blood on his teeth. "Because you're not a monster anymore. She changed you, made you soft." He looked past Luis to Pamela. "Congratulations, sweetheart. You killed the most dangerous man on the East Coast. I hope the baby's worth it." Luis's finger tightened on the trigger. "Luis," Pamela's voice cut through the rage. "Don't. He tried to kill you. I know. But if you kill him, you become exactly what he said you were, what everyone says you are." She stood, legs unsteady, hand still on her stomach. "You told me you wanted to be someone different, someone better. Prove it." Luis stared at Victor for a long moment. Then he lowered the gun. "You're right. I'm not a monster anymore." He pulled out his phone and made a call. "Agent Morrison, it's Luis Griffin. I have something you want. Victor Reyes, alive. And I'm ready to make a deal." He ended the call and looked at Victor. "You wanted the organization? You can have it. From a federal prison cell." Outside, sirens wailed, getting closer. "The tunnel," Luis said to Pamela. "Now." They ran through the church to a small door behind the sacristy. Luis pulled it open, revealing stone steps descending into darkness. Behind them, footsteps, not Victor's men. Isabella's reinforcements finally arriving. They plunged into the tunnel, the door slamming shut behind them. In the darkness, Luis found Pamela's hand. "You saved my life," he said. "You saved mine first." Her voice shook. "Are we even now?" "Not even close." They ran through the tunnels, the sounds of pursuit fading behind them. When they finally emerged 3 blocks away, a black sedan was waiting. The driver, an older man in a suit, nodded to Luis. "Agent Morrison," Luis said to Pamela. "FBI, and an old friend of your father's." The agent looked at Pamela, and something softened in his expression. "You look like him. Robert would be proud." Pamela's throat tightened. "You knew my father?" "For 15 years. Best agent I ever worked with." Morrison opened the back door. "Get in. We need to move. Isabella Castellano has a small army looking for you." As they pulled away from the church, Pamela looked back at the Gothic silhouette against the night sky, a place where she'd fired a gun for the first time, where she'd saved a life by taking a shot she never thought she'd take, where she'd become someone she didn't recognize. Luis's hand found hers in the darkness of the back seat. "What happens now?" she whispered. "Now," Agent Morrison said from the front seat, "we end this war. Permanently." The contraction hit like a wave of fire, and Pamela gripped the edge of the kitchen counter in the FBI safe house, breathing through it the way she'd been taught in the online classes she'd taken while hiding from a mob war. "Luis," she managed, "it's time." He was at her side in seconds, phone already out, calling Agent Morrison. 6 months of hiding had changed him. Leaner, harder, but also softer in ways she hadn't expected. He'd been there for every doctor's appointment they could safely attend, every ultrasound, every moment of fear and hope. "How far apart?" he asked. 5 minutes, maybe less. Another contraction built, and she doubled over. "God, I forgot how much this hurts." "You've done this before?" "No, but I've delivered enough babies to know." She tried to smile through the pain. We need to go. Now. The drive to St. Vincent's was a blur of streetlights and contractions, and Louise's hand gripping hers. Agent Morrison followed in a separate vehicle, along with 2 other FBI agents who'd become their shadows over the past 6 months. 6 months of building a case against the Castellanos. 6 months of Luis testifying, providing evidence, systematically dismantling the empire his father had built. 6 months of watching his old world crumble while trying to build something new with a woman who'd accidentally texted him one desperate night. 6 months of preparing to become a father. The paternity test had been definitive. Sophia, they'd already chosen the name, was his. And in 3 weeks, Louis Griffin would officially enter witness protection, leaving behind everything he'd ever known. But first, she had to be born. They rushed through the ER entrance, Pamela's water breaking in the hallway, nurses appearing with a wheelchair, and calm efficiency. Louis stayed with her, one hand in hers, the other resting on the gun concealed beneath his jacket, a habit he couldn't break even now. "Room 4, the nurse said. "Dr. Reyes is on her way." They were halfway to the delivery room when the lights flickered. Louise's phone buzzed. Morrison. "We've got movement. 3 vehicles, blacked out, approaching from the east entrance. Get her secure. Now." "What's wrong?" Pamela asked, but another contraction swallowed the question. "Nothing." Louis's voice was steady, but his eyes were scanning every face, every shadow. "Just focus on breathing." They reached the delivery room. Dr. Reyes was waiting, already gloved and gowned. "Pamela, let's get you checked. How far apart are the contractions?" 3 minutes, maybe less." "Good. We're moving fast then." The doctor turned to Louis. "Dad, you staying?" He looked at Pamela. She nodded. "I'm staying." Outside, chaos erupted. Alarms, shouting, the sharp crack of gunfire from somewhere below. Louis was at the door instantly, gun drawn. "Lock it! Don't open it for anyone but me or Morrison." "Louis," Pamela started, but he was already gone. Dr. Reyes locked the door, her face pale but professional. "Okay, change of plans. We're delivering this baby right now, lockdown or not." Louis moved through the hospital corridors with the precision of someone who'd learned violence as a second language. Morrison and his team were engaged on the 3rd floor, Castellano soldiers disguised as orderlies, maintenance workers, people who'd walked right through security. Isabella had been quiet for 6 months, too quiet. They'd known she'd make a move eventually. They just hadn't expected it tonight. His phone buzzed. Morrison. 8 hostiles on floor 4. 2 heading for labor and delivery. Get back there." Louis ran. He rounded a corner and came face to face with 2 men in scrubs. Their eyes gave them away. Cold, professional, wrong for medical staff. One reached for a weapon. Louis fired first. 2 shots, center mass. The men dropped. More footsteps behind him. He spun, dropped to one knee as bullets tore through the wall above his head, returned fire. Another hostile down. His shoulder, the old wound from 6 months ago, screamed in protest. He ignored it. Pamela, Sophia, nothing else matters. He reached the delivery room door just as someone tried to force it open from the other side. Louis put 3 rounds through the wood. A body fell. "Pamela!" he shouted. "It's me!" The door unlocked. He slipped inside, locked it again, and turned to see Pamela on the delivery table, legs up, face twisted in pain and effort. "I can see the head," Dr. Reyes said. Pamela, next contraction, you push. Everything you've got. Luis! Pamela's voice was strained. What's happening? Isabella. She found us. He positioned himself between the door and the delivery table. But she's not getting in here. You can't promise that. Yes, I can. He met her eyes. Push, Pamela. Bring our daughter into the world. I'll handle everything else. She pushed. The scream that tore from her throat was primal, ancient, the sound of life forcing its way into existence despite everything. Good, Dr. Reyes said. Again, one more. Pamela pushed again, and suddenly the room filled with a different sound, a baby's cry. It's a girl, Dr. Reyes said, lifting the tiny blood-covered form. A healthy, beautiful girl. Luis's vision blurred. He'd killed people, had watched people die, had caused more death than he could count, but he'd never seen anything as perfect as his daughter taking her first breath. Dr. Reyes placed Sophia on Pamela's chest, mother and child alive and together despite everything the world had tried to do to prevent this moment. Then the window exploded. Isabella Castellano climbed through, glass crunching under her boots, a scalpel glinting in her hand. Luis raised his gun, but she was faster. She grabbed Sophia before anyone could react, the scalpel pressed against the newborn's tiny throat. Put it down, Isabella said quietly, or I paint this room red. Luis lowered his weapon slowly. Isabella, you destroyed everything. Her voice was hollow, broken. My wedding, my plans, my family's entire operation. The FBI has my father, my brothers, everyone. And for what? For her? For a chance at something real. Real, Isabella laughed. You threw away an empire for real. How's that working out for you? Sophia cried, a small, fragile sound that cut through everything else. Take me instead, Luis said. Let them go. Kill me, and you get your revenge. The war ends here. Luis, no! Pamela tried to sit up, but Dr. Reyes held her down. It's the only way this ends, Luis said, not taking his eyes off Isabella. You want blood? Take mine. But let my daughter live. Let Pamela live. They didn't choose this war. Isabella stared at him, scalpel still pressed against Sophia's throat. For a moment, Luis thought she'd do it. Thought she'd take everything from him the way he'd taken everything from her. Then she looked down at the baby in her arms, at the tiny, helpless life she held, and something broke in her expression. You're already dead, she whispered. Dead to our world. Dead to everything you were. She lowered the scalpel. You chose love over power. That's not strength, Luis. That's suicide in our world. She placed Sophia back in Dr. Reyes's arms, stepped back toward the window. You won, Isabella said. But you'll spend the rest of your life running, looking over your shoulder, wondering when someone like me decides you're worth the trouble. She climbed back through the broken window. Congratulations on your daughter. I hope she was worth it. She disappeared into the night. 30 seconds later, FBI agents flooded the room. Morrison secured the area, arrested 3 Castellano soldiers in the hallway. But Luis only had eyes for Pamela, for Sophia, now back on her mother's chest, crying softly. He holstered his gun and moved to the delivery table, touched his daughter's tiny hand with one finger. She gripped it instinctively, impossibly strong for something so small. She was worth it, he said quietly. All of it. Every choice. Every consequence. Pamela looked up at him, tears streaming down her face. We're alive. We're alive. He kissed her forehead. And in 3 weeks, we disappear. New names. New lives. A chance to be normal. You really think we can do that? Be normal? Luis looked at his daughter, at her tiny fingers wrapped around his, at the life he'd helped create against all odds. I don't know, he admitted, but I'm going to try. For her. For you. Outside, sirens wailed. Morrison was on his phone, coordinating with local PD. The hospital would be secure in minutes. But for now, in this small delivery room with broken windows and bullet holes in the walls, a family existed. Imperfect. Impossible. Alive. The letter arrived at dawn, slipped under the safe house door like a death warrant written on expensive paper. Luis read it twice, then set it on the kitchen table where Pamela was feeding Sophia her morning bottle. 2 weeks old, and already she had her father's dark eyes, her mother's stubborn chin. "What is it?" Pamela asked. "A meeting. The council. What's left of it after Morrison's raids?" Luis poured coffee he wouldn't drink. "They're offering me a choice." "What kind of choice?" "The kind that isn't really a choice." He sat across from her. "Come back. Leave you and Sophia. Return to power. Or die." Pamela's hand tightened on the bottle. "When?" "Tomorrow night. They're giving me 24 hours to decide." "And if you don't go?" "They'll come here. And Morrison can't protect us forever." Luis reached across the table, touched Sophia's tiny foot. "I won't let them anywhere near her." "So what are you going to do?" Luis met her eyes. End it. Permanently. He spent the next 24 hours memorizing moments, the way Sophia's fingers curled around his when he held her, the sound of her breathing while she slept. The weight of her in his arms, impossibly light and impossibly heavy at the same time. The way Pamela looked at him when she thought he wasn't watching, not with fear anymore, not with suspicion, with something else, something that felt dangerously close to love. "You don't have to do this," she said that night, Sophia asleep between them in the bed. "We could run, disappear." Morrison said, "Running means living in fear, always looking over our shoulders, never knowing when they'll find us." Luis brushed a strand of hair from Pamela's face. "I want Sophia to grow up free, and the only way that happens is if I burn it all down." "You might not survive." "I know. Luis, if something happens to me, Morrison has everything set up. Money, new identities. You and Sophia will be safe." He kissed her forehead. "That's all that matters." She grabbed his hand. "You matter. To us. To me." "Pamela, don't do that thing where you pretend you're not worth saving." Her voice broke. "You threw away an empire for us. You've spent 6 months testifying, building cases, destroying your own world so Sophia could have a better one. You matter." Luis pulled her close, careful not to wake the baby between them. "Then I'll come back. I promise." It was a promise he wasn't sure he could keep. The meeting was in a warehouse on the docks, neutral territory. 8 men waiting when Luis arrived. What remained of the council after Morrison's raids had gutted the organization, and beneath his shirt, pressed against his chest, was the wire Morrison had given him. Luis, Antonio Castellano, Isabella's father, out on bail and looking 20 years older, stood at the head of a makeshift table. "You came. Did I have a choice?" "Everyone has a choice. You made yours 6 months ago." Antonio gestured to an empty chair. "Sit. Let's talk about fixing it." Luis sat, felt the wire recording every word. "There's nothing to fix. I'm out. I've been out since the moment I cancelled that wedding." "Out?" One of the other bosses, Marino from the south side, laughed. "You don't get out! This life doesn't work that way!" "It does now." "Because you've been talking to the FBI?" Antonio's voice was cold. "Yes, we know. Morrison's raids didn't come from nowhere. You've been feeding them information for months." "I've been cleaning house, getting rid of the poison in the organization." "The organization is dead because of you." Marino slammed his hand on the table. "3 of my lieutenants are in federal custody. My entire operation is under investigation. And you want to tell me you were helping?" "I was saving what mattered, getting rid of what didn't." Antonio leaned forward. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to come back. You're going to stop cooperating with the FBI. You're going to walk away from that nurse and the baby, and you're going to rebuild what you destroyed." "No." "Then you die, tonight. And we make sure the nurse and the baby follow shortly after." Luis met his eyes. "You threatening my daughter, Antonio?" "I'm telling you the cost of your choices." "Then let me tell you mine." Luis stood slowly. "I'm not choosing between power and family. I'm choosing to burn it all down so my daughter never knows this world. So she never has to look over her shoulder or wonder if her father's hands are covered in blood." "Noble," Marino sneered. "And stupid. Maybe." Luis pulled open his shirt, revealing the wire. "But at least it's recorded." The room exploded into chaos, guns drawn, shouting, Antonio's face draining of color. "You're dead!" Marino screamed. "Maybe, but you're all under arrest." The warehouse doors burst open. FBI agents flooded in, weapons drawn, Morrison at the front. "Nobody move! FBI!" What followed was a blur of handcuffs and Miranda rights and 8 crime bosses, realizing they'd just confessed to decades of criminal activity on a wire Luis Griffin had been wearing the entire time. The largest organized crime bust in city history, and Luis Griffin, standing in the middle of it all, had orchestrated every second. 3 days later, Luis stood in the cemetery where Robert Robinson was buried. He'd come to say goodbye. To the man whose death he'd contributed to the life he was leaving behind, to the person he'd been before a wrong number text changed everything. Morrison had arranged everything. New identities, new city, a fresh start for Pamela and Sophia, but not for him. "I can't ask her to forgive this," Luis said to the gravestone. "I can't ask her to spend her life with someone who destroyed hers." "Then it's a good thing you're not asking." He turned. Pamela stood behind him, Sophia in a carrier against her chest, eyes red, but determined. "You weren't supposed to find me. Morrison told me where you'd be. Also told me you were planning to enter witness protection alone." She walked closer. "You don't get to decide you're not worthy. You don't get to choose for me." "Pamela!" "My father died investigating organized crime. He spent his life fighting people like you." She looked at her father's grave. "But he also spent his life believing people could change, that redemption was possible, that nobody was beyond saving. I killed people. I destroyed families. Your father—" "My father would have wanted his granddaughter to know her father." Pamela's voice was steady now, certain. "And I want the man who threw away an empire to save us. The man who wore a wire into a room full of killers because he wanted his daughter to grow up free." Luis felt something break inside him. 5 years of walls crumbling. "I don't deserve you." "Probably not. But you've got me anyway." She took his hand. "So stop trying to be noble and tragic. Stop trying to protect me from yourself. Just Be with us. Build something new. Be the father Sophia deserves and the man I know you can be." He looked at his daughter, sleeping peacefully against her mother's chest. At Pamela, who'd been dragged into his world by accident and chosen to stay on purpose. "Okay," he whispered. "Okay." The coastal town was small, quiet, the kind of place where everyone knew everyone and strangers were noticed immediately, which was why Louise Griffin, now Lucas Grant, had been careful. So careful. He ran a community centre for at-risk youth, teaching them boxing and discipline, and that there were paths other than the ones he'd taken. Pamela worked at the local clinic, specialising in prenatal care for women in crisis, and Sophia was starting kindergarten today. She held his hand as they walked toward the school, chattering about her new backpack and the crayons Pamela had bought her. 5 years old, bright, happy, completely unaware that her father had once been one of the most dangerous men on the East Coast. "Daddy, will you pick me up?" "Every day, Princess. I promise." They reached the school gates. Other parents milled around, kids running and shouting. Normal, achingly normal. Then Louise saw him, a man standing near the parking lot, mid-50s, familiar face, someone from before. Their eyes met, recognition flared. Louise's hand tightened on Sophia's. His other hand moved instinctively toward where he used to carry a gun, found nothing. The man walked over, slowly, hands visible. "Lucas Grant," he said, using the new name. "Do I know you?" "You did. Different life." The man extended his hand. "I got out too, 3 years ago. Saw you from across the lot and thought, well, good for you." Louise stared at the hand, then shook it. "Good for you too." The man smiled, nodded at Sophia. "Beautiful daughter. Hold on to this. It's worth more than anything we left behind." He walked away. Just another parent. Another person who'd found a different path. Pamela appeared at Louise's side, slipping her hand into his. "You okay?" "Yeah." He kissed Sophia's head. "Go on, Princess. Have a great first day." Sophia ran toward the school, backpack bouncing, pigtails flying. Louise watched his daughter disappear into the building, into a life of homework and playground politics and all the beautiful normalcy he'd never thought he'd have. "You did it," Pamela said quietly. "You broke the cycle. We did it." She leaned against him. And together they watched until the school doors closed and their daughter was gone, safe, free, choosing her own path in a world they'd fought to give her. The cycle was broken, and Louise Griffin, Lucas Grant, was finally, impossibly, home.